Welcome everyone, my name's Dom, and this is my tutorial on how to work the browser to help increase your chances of being able to get a pre-order in for a hot item like PlayStation 5, or to be able to get your order in to help battle the scalpers. And this basically kind of works like, I'm just going to teach you guys some stuff about the browser, about the internet, about servers, just a little tiny bit, just to give you guys enough information so you have the tools to increase your odds of being able to kind of work your way into getting your order through, when the servers are really bogged down by scalpers and bots and stuff like that, and just other people in general. So let's get started. Okay, so let's go over just a couple little pieces of information about the browser. So the first thing is the browser itself, right? You put in your domain, and a lot of you may know this, but for the ones that don't, you put in your domain here, and I got bestbuy.com loaded up here. So what's going to happen is your computer is going to do a special kind of lookup that gets an IP address that basically sends a request to a server that IP address is associated to. That server is going to process your request and then return a response, and that usually includes like a piece of some code that has some other data attached to it, and that's what we really want to focus on. But that code has all this HTML that gets loaded in, and that HTML has links to images and other code and so on and so forth. So what's important though is, like I said, that other data, and that other data is important because that's what we need to look at. So this will work for most browsers, right? So this won't work, like it's going to be a little different, but I'm going to use Chrome here because that's the most common. So what we want to do is we want to use our inspector. Now, most browsers that I'm familiar with, the major browsers, have an inspector. They look a little different, they act a little different, but for the most part, this is where we're going to get our information from. So, if you're using Safari or Edge or any of those, you should have an inspector, and you might want to familiarize yourself with it depending on what you're using. So the first thing that we want to look at though is our network tab here. So we can see here in the Elements tab, this is kind of all of our code that's in our browser. We can see the different areas highlight as we hover over them, right? But that's not what's important. What's important is this network tab here. Now, the reason that this is important is because this is where we can see all of the requests that our browser is currently making. As a matter of fact, if I hit all, and then we reload the page, we can see there's the initial request to bestbuy.com, and then here's all the different subsequent requests that came from that request, right? And all these are different things. They're images, it's JavaScript, style sheets, a bunch of stuff, right? So a lot of these requests can be made without you having to refresh the browser. And that's what's important, right? Because a lot of the websites, and each website's going to be a little different, but for the most part, the websites are going to be making calls behind the scenes, right? So I already have something added in my cart here, but let's go ahead and run through it and let's take a look. So let's do Xbox One. And before we do any of that, let's go to our XHR tab. So in our network tab in Chrome, XHR is what we're looking for. And for the most part, in most browsers, it should be called XHR. It might be called Ajax. There might be a few other terms. If you see something weird in your browser, please throw it down in the comments below, and I'll try to help. I'll try to help you work through it. So again, this is gonna be a little technical. You might need to practice it, but I assure you, this is a good skill that you're gonna want to have, and you're gonna want to familiarize yourself with to help, again, increase your chances. It's not gonna guarantee that you're gonna get one, but it will help increase your chances by not having you waste time with extra clicks that you don't necessarily need. So if we look through here, let's see what we got. We got some stuff that's going on. We want to, let's get this Astro Gaming headset, right? So what's important is now we're in this page, right? So when I hit add to cart, that's the first thing. Now, again, every website will be a little different, but what's important is being able to kind of work our way through the website and figure out what calls are important. And so what we can do is we're in XHR here, right? So when we hit add to cart, let's look over here. See that? Hold on. Where was it? Add to cart. Okay. So this thing goes crazy because it's constantly making calls. But what we can do is we can just do in our filter up here, add to cart. And this is one of the ones that we're looking for. There's also this add to cart reporting variables. And again, each website's going to be different, so you might want to do a little bit of experimenting, a little bit of testing on your website of choice or on different websites to kind of familiarize yourself with it, kind of do what I'm doing here. So when it's time for the pre-order or for you to make your purchase, you'll know what to do per website, right? So we don't want any of that. And so this is the next important part here, right? And this is the status code. And the status code is part of that data that comes along with your request. And I'm sure you've seen other codes like 404, which is page not found, 500, internal server error. I think it's 502 or 503. It's forbidden. There's a bunch of them, right? And so for the most part, 200 codes are the ones that you're looking for. They have like 201s and 202s, and those are usually good. Your browser will tell you though, with a little green thing, whether or not it's good. And so that's what we're generally looking for, right? Another type of thing that might happen though, if the server's getting bogged down by like thousands and thousands and thousands of requests per second, we might get something called a timeout, which isn't really a status code. It's not a response per se, but the browser and the internet is kind of designed with this idea in mind that, all right, wait a certain amount of time. And if I don't hear anything back, then timeout. Basically says, you know what, I'm not hearing anything back. I'm assuming the request failed. I'm going to go on and do other stuff and just let the person know, hey, I've timed out. You might want to try again. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that your request hasn't gone through, that your purchase or your adding to cart hasn't gone through. It just means a timeout has occurred. And more often than not, I would say it means that your thing didn't go through. Doesn't mean that it didn't. And if you get a timeout, one of the things you can do is refresh your page and check your cart and then see whether or not the item is in your cart or not. Because if you see it, then it went through and you just didn't get a response back saying that it went through. So that's part one, right? So now that we have this thing in our cart, we want to do the exact same thing again for checkout. So when we hit checkout, right, we're looking for, and there it is. I just saw it, checkout right there. Boom. Here, let's do our filter. Okay, so that took us to a new page, right? But on the last one, I saw checkout. Now it went through, which basically told the browser, there was some code that went through and it said, okay, you know what? This is good. Go ahead and move on to the next thing. That's the one that you want to make sure you're not sitting and waiting for. If in this case you see, when you click the checkout button, a call gets made and that call fails, you probably need to refresh your browser. Another pro tip too is be sure to be signed in to all of your websites. Like do it like an hour before or the day before, or like check once a day. Make sure you're signed in, because that will save you a huge amount of time when you're in this battle, right? And so from there, right, it's just rinse and repeat. You want to see which calls are important and you want to make sure they go through. If you get anything else that is not a 200 or you get a timeout, you might want to refresh or start over. And this way you're not sitting and clicking the button over and over and over again. If you go through and you click the button a whole bunch of times, I'm not going to actually place this order because I don't want to buy that stuff. But when you click the button and you're sitting and waiting, you may get an error back and you're sitting and waiting thinking, okay, it's going to go through because the little wheel is spinning or something like that. But that's not necessarily the case. It could have came back and it could have just errored out, and it errored out in a way that the browser, the code that's running in the browser, doesn't know what to do with. And so it just doesn't say anything. It just hangs there, right? And so you can check your calls and you can see which ones went through. And this would also be good because then you're not clicking, because when people go in and they click, trying to make it go through, all of those might be extra calls that are being made. And that's just going to add to the slowdown. Because all those calls have got to get processed, right? So, yeah, that's more or less what it is that we want to do. And if you have any questions or you want to see this in more detail or me work through different websites, let me know down in the comments below. I'd be more than happy to do that for you guys, because I want you guys to be able to get the stuff that you want. I don't like scalpers. I think it's total BS that they do that. And I think to a degree they know it too, but people are going to do what they're going to do. And so we just have to arm ourselves with information and educate ourselves on what we can do to kind of, work through what we're working with. And this is one of those ways to do it. So again, to summarize, we're looking out for, we want to use the browser inspector. Okay. The inspector in all the major browsers, Firefox, Edge, so on and so forth. They all have an inspector. They're all going to be slightly different, but we're looking for the network tab. And in the network tab, we're looking for XHR or Ajax or remote or server or whatever, right? We're looking for something that kind of sounds like we're looking for these types of network calls. We're not looking for images. We're looking for these special types of calls. So from there, we want to walk through the process of ordering our thing. And we want to monitor which of these calls are the ones that we want to pay attention to. And like I said, if it comes back 200, then the website should go through as if it's normal. But you'll know when it's time to refresh or when it's time to restart if you get a weird call. So the point is that you don't always want to rely on the browser to tell you something went wrong. You want to know for yourself. And if you see something that comes back and it's like, okay, well, this request went bad, and I see that it went bad, the browser didn't do anything, you can kind of start back over and walk through the process just like I did here on your preferred website, anything like that. And you want to make sure that you familiarize yourself with the process. This is relatively easy for me because I do it for a living, right? I'm a web application developer. That's my day job. So this kind of stuff is simple for me. But for you guys, I want to make sure that you have the tools that you need. So like I said, you can throw a comment down below if you have any questions. If you guys want more information, and I see enough people kind of commenting and looking for more information, more tips, more tricks, because they don't understand, I'd be more than happy to make another video for you guys, or even do a live stream. If you guys want, I can do a live stream and you guys can check it out. And then ask me questions there in real time, and I can show you how to do certain stuff. So if you guys would like that, definitely throw a like on the video. Please be sure to subscribe, and definitely check out, if you haven't already, my responding to the scalpers in my rant video about PS5 scalpers. I did that video. If you haven't already seen it, definitely go check that one out. I'm doing a new thing. Please consider sharing the video. I think it helps the channel a lot, and I think this one definitely needs to be shared. So please hit that share button, because I want as many people to have this information and be able to ask me questions and stuff as possible. And as always, guys, talk to you soon.